You are now listening to PODCORN, episode 24, for September 11th, 2013.
Oh,
Hey people, it's Amyreeder and Bmontclare, and we're bringing you a PODCORN podcast.
Sure are.
So I guess today we're going to be talking about a little bit about just what the latest topic is on the interwebs, because it has to do with Batwoman, which I had worked on for a little while.
Yeah, Batwoman.
Yeah,
Few issues. What issues did you do?
I did issues 6 through 8.
That's right.
Yeah.
And part of the Zero issue.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Like
Although the
half of
first
it.
Zero issue, DC.
Yeah,
felt
there's
it
2
necessary
zeros.
To do 2 Zero issues.
So I sometimes have people come to me with the other 0 and they get really angry because I was supposed to be able to sign it or something.
I've said it before and I said it again. Batwoman Zero. It's the first of the new 52.
Oh, yeah. And it was like a year ahead of time before
That's
they
right.
even announced the new 52.
Before Justice League #1.
Mm-hmm.
Batwoman Zero.
Mm-hmm.
You scooped Jeff Johns and Jim Lee.
Sure did. I scooped him in 2 different ways because...
Oh, yeah?
Yes, because there was this this Midnight Madness thing the night before they were going to release Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out there. There's like a crowd of people lined
Midtown
up to meet
Comics.
Jim Lee. Yeah. And I was out there working the crowd. They had me come and work the crowd with your iPad actually that had Batwoman pages on it. And yeah, so I still is Thunder. I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
No,
there
I'm
you
just
go.
kidding. So I guess the new news is that JH and Hayden Blackman are leaving Batwoman.
Creative differences.
Creative differences.
You know what that's all about.
Well, I'm sure he had his different breed of it.
Well, listen, the story got really, blown up. I think the fair way to say is like, oh, well, they wanted us to make a lot of changes, and a lot of them were last minute, and we wanted to go in a different direction. So, we're going to wrap it up and end.
Yeah.
But one of the particulars was they didn't want Batwoman to get married.
Yes.
DC didn't want him to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of part that
Everybody
mainstream news
stuck
kind of
to.
picked up and ran away
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
somehow.
They were concerned that it was.
Well, they weren't concerned; they were furious.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to understate it. Yeah, they were very upset, feeling that it was some sort of anti-marriage equality sort of thing going on, and but even JH himself had clarified, I guess, that they didn't really mean that sort of thing. It was just that they were against having characters married. That makes the characters uninteresting, that they won't be long-lasting if they're married.
Does it make it uninteresting?
Well, that's the question that we're going to ask today.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm of 2 minds about this, because I would say that overall, stories do tend to get lamer, like on TV shows and stuff like that, when the characters that you've been wanting to get together, like The Office, yeah. Brandon's making fun of me because to me that's like the main comparison that comes to my mind is Pam and Jim, or I think that's who they were, and I wanted them to get together really badly, and then when they did, it was totally lame, and they didn't even seem to be cute anymore. They didn't even seem to have cool things that they do anymore. It was just like Pam whining about stuff. It felt like I was just
Well,
very
they say
bothered
once they get together, all the tension's gone. It always ruins a show. Moonlighting was very famous. Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis, the '80s. Mm-hmm. You can watch it and say it's all. For
I love
reference.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Well, this was his first anything. It was before Die Hard, so it was his first role.
And it was a show, a TV show.
Yeah, it was a TV
Wow,
show.
I didn't know he did TV.
Yeah, he was a private detective.
Yeah.
And Sybil Shepherd was a model who somehow wound up owning the private. It was comedy, but wound up owning. It was very well done, actually. So
Here's what I think is that, first of all, marriage with superheroes is not as big of a deal as a story that's mainly like wrapping around those two characters and their love story. Okay? So like even if they get married, the story isn't over because the story isn't about them, on the whole. It's about all the other things that they do.
Right. It's not a romantic tension comic and you're gonna ruin it because
Yeah.
I think practically speaking it should be mentioned that a lot of characters get married and then publishers feel that they're stuck with the marriage. Spider-Man, Superman, all these things it's like you can't undo it once you get there and it changes the status quo and it's
Can't you? You can't have divorce on
well,
in
even
comics.
then it becomes part of the story and everything else. I mean, there's a much larger debate as to whether or not people should even really be caring about continuity. I say it's like, well, if all of a sudden you don't want Superman to be married, why don't you just tell a story that took place before he was married? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the first comics I read, kind of regularly, right, was I say this for Savage Sword of Conan, and he would be a young kid just starting out in one issue, and the next issue he'd be like a grizzled king of Aquilonia. Like they would just bounce back and forth, and it was like, it was great. But people want continuity now, so they worry about it.
Yeah, I mean that is like actually a huge continuity move.
Yeah.
And you would think
So much of the charm of Superman, and you get a bit of this in All Star, was the love triangle between Clark, Superman, and Lois. And once they're married, then that dynamic is totally gone. And it almost takes away all the interesting things you can do with Lois Lane. I mean, not to say, she's a reporter, you can do cool stuff. I'm saying, no,
it's
was
true.
Really
the dynamic was really a big part
exactly.
of Superman.
And
as
Spider-Man
a
was supposed to be like the regular guy, right, who was always out of money and he couldn't do anything. He wasn't the billionaire Bruce Wayne who had it all but then decided to fight crime. He was just the appeal of Spider-Man in the 60s.
He was everybody.
Was that he was an everyman. But then he's all of a sudden married to a supermodel, Mary Jane Watson. Like, he's got it all, doesn't he? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I mean, like, I would think if you were to marry two characters that you would... I have no idea what JH did, to get that squared away. But that is actually, like, a really major thing, like, in that sense, when... The way that you're saying, like, how it changes continuity.
Yes, but this isn't Spider-Man or Superman. It's not
That's
a
true.
character.
She doesn't interact too much with other characters either.
And I really think you can make the argument that her being a lesbian is very much, whatever anybody is, I guess, is a part of their character, right? But that's part of not the character, but the book, the property almost. I don't want to make it sound too commercial, but I mean, very consciously a lesbian superhero and what that means. And, that was very much part of what Rucka and JH kind of started it with. It's won a couple of GLAAD awards since,
Yeah,
so it's definitely, something that goes beyond just a background piece, right? It's central to how that character is even presented, not just by all the creators that worked on it, but DC also. I mean, they get behind it as, hey, it's a lesbian character. And to me, something that hasn't been talked about, which would be interesting to talk about, you talk about gay and lesbian issues, right? Marriage, obviously, we just had marriage equality making big strides, but still it's not equal pay, it's not adopting kids, it's not anything else, it's marriage, right? So I think if you're going to be topical,
true,
and you have a lesbian book, I mean, it's almost like a missed opportunity. If they don't get married, you know what I mean? It's like I would be like if I were in the quote unquote editor at DC who makes this decision, or editorial that makes this decision, I would almost suggest it to the creative team. You should get them married because that's kind of what it's all about. And you had the Marvel North Star marriage, and even Archie, right? They created a gay character to much fanfare, and all of a sudden they have a future story about him getting married. It's of the time, you know. And Dan DiDio made a comment that these people can't really age in real time, but comics should kind of, you have an opportunity to reflect what's going on in the world. You should kind of take advantage of it. But I think they kind of just looked at it with very narrow, focus and said, "Oh, characters when they get married, they're not cool anymore, so let's not do it."
Well, and here's a weird little, supposition here. Is it that maybe the reason why we all feel like in stories it gets kind of boring and stuff like that, is because it reflects what a lot of people think. That's the weird part. Like, do people really think it's just that lame even in their own lives when they get married? Because that's, to me, is what it's saying. They're just like, it's boring. There's nothing to talk about once you get married.
You got derailed from what I thought you made the excellent point of. It wasn't a romance comic about the two of them. They're going to ruin the core of this property. She was a supporting character. She's the girlfriend. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Again, it's the wife.
I mean, it changes it in the sense that she's in the police force and helps Batwoman, and now they know each other, so it's kind of like a, hey, thanks, sweetie, for giving me the okay. You know what I mean?
It's a slippery slope. I think in a way, I can see an editor saying, "Are you guys sure you want to do with this? Because it's going to open up so many questions that you might have to answer." Because it was a secret, right? She didn't know.
She didn't know up to a certain point. Right, I think when Batwoman, I wasn't reading at this point, but I think when Batwoman proposed to Maggie, it was while she was in costume.
Right. And we're not even getting into the whole issue, which is a valid issue, as to how much creative control should somebody have. But I mean, I don't want to go down there. It's a very interesting topic, but a lot of people are talking about it. But it's a whole podcast in and of itself. You should have faith in the creators, I suppose. But it's always, you inject reality into that, and then it's like, well, what really is going on? But you had your time with these characters. Mm-hmm. You come at it as a female creator, maybe differently, caring. It's going to sound stereotypical, but you care more about the relationships. Yes. But I can say that comfortably because I know that you do.
Because you know that I do, yeah.
But also I've seen you interact with fans of Batwoman.
Yes.
And they care about that stuff too. Female fans, I mean. About the relationships and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's another thing that maybe, DC editorial's focus was a little too narrow, and not thinking like maybe this is a book where it would really work out. Exactly. Yeah. No, I think so. No, I think that's true. And it was really fun. I really tried to make an emphasis on the characters, and I do feel that, like, the female fans, and male too, but, like, I did feel like they felt that I got the characters. Because they were all, like, there were a lot of different women, and they were all very different attitudes, and, like, Chase and Maggie even looked kind of similar, but I'd have to still make them really distinct and stuff, so, Yeah, no, it was, and Sune, or Sunny, what was it?
Sune, I think. If it's Japanese, I'm assuming you pronounce it all. I don't know.
But she tried to
get between them.
She tried to force a triangle, right?
Yeah. No, for me it was really interesting. I didn't know who Batwoman was supposed to end up with, actually, at that point. And like, let's see here. So I actually thought at the time, based on how much, like, grief Chase was giving Batwoman, that they would end up together.
Right.
It just seemed like a kind of storytelling mode. I was like, why is Chase being such a pain? She's got to end up with her. You know what I mean? In a some sort of, like, troublesome relationship.
I'm trying to think of the critic, and I'm out of my depth. But Anne Malor, I think, was and like some kind of homosocial theory, and it goes all the way back to Chaucer and the Knight's Tale, the first tale, like Canterbury Tales. And they say this a lot, where there's two men fighting over a woman, but the woman is always completely objectified, and the relationship of either knight with the object of their affection between the girl and guy number one, or the girl and guy number two, that relationship isn't ever nearly as developed as the two guys who are competing with one another. Yeah. So maybe that's like Chase and and Batwoman, right?
Yeah, except they're not both after Maggie.
No, but like I said, there's a conflict there, and there's maybe more dynamism and conflict than harmony. Yeah, I guess. So I don't know. It's interesting that you say that, because you're like, I wouldn't mind people being in a relationship, and I like relationships. But you were maybe more immediately drawn to a conflicting relationship where there's tension, or...
Yeah, well, I just thought that was what his plan was, so I was trying to be pretty aware of that, and I guess I failed, but yeah, I don't know. So it was kind of interesting, and I knew that Sune was supposed to be this femme fatale. So, you know, so all three of them I felt kind of had this different dynamic with Kate Kane, Batwoman.
But that's interesting because that's you bringing a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you.
Well, I felt like
that for you especially that has to influence every page of those characters.
Yeah.
Later on.
Well, this is gonna probably sound terrible, but yeah, I was more interested in the relationship between Maggie or between Chase and Batwoman than I was Maggie and Kate because it felt like Maggie and Kate were almost like too blissful for me. Like it felt like I felt like the tension was something that made me want them to get together, which is kind of sad, you know, because it's like you kind of want to want happy people to be happy.
But truth be told, you don't know that if JH got them married that they would necessarily be blissful, meaning Maggie.
Yeah. I'm sure he would have had conflict now and then, at least.
Well, one would think, you know.
Yeah. Who's gonna pick up the kids from school?
Something like that. No, I mean, obviously, I don't know that you necessarily bring marriage into a story to evoke bliss. Yeah. But I mean, you know, I don't know. What are you saying? Does it get watered down though if it's too, you know?
See, that's the thing.
Did you ever watch The Thin Man? The old serials?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, they're old movies, but Myrna Loy and William Powell, is that it? The detective and his wife, and said one of the an influential movie, but that was actually a couple that I think they were married, but still had a dynamism to them, and interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to check it out actually because I feel like I almost like can't picture it being done, even though I know it should be able to be done. You know what I mean? It should be interesting. I've seen a lot of movies where the two characters are already together, and then something tragic takes them apart. And they're always so cute when they're together, and you're really angry when they get taken apart. But, so yeah, it seems like it can be done. You can really make it established continuously the reason why they should and ought to be together. And that you want them to stay that way, and you want to find out new things that develop between them, you know? But it just seems like everybody seems to assume already that it's just boring, which is kind of sad about our whole society in a way, you know.
Well, I mean,
that's the assumption.
Again, it doesn't have to be. And was Batwoman maybe the place where
yeah, she would have been a good choice for it. Right. Yeah, good candidate. So, sorry, Batwoman. I guess.
Or not. I mean, what's more important? Is it more important instead to, have her throwing batarangs at Killer Croc?
She still would though, even if she were married. Yeah. So that's why they should have just done it. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't feel super strongly either way.
I think that you feel, Maggie wasn't good enough.
I just didn't really understand what brought them together personality-wise. Yeah, like maybe I just missed it or something, but I felt like they were both a little too
there's not a lot
standoffish for each other. Like I felt like Kate plays such a straight, like not actually straight, but like
direct.
Yeah, direct, serious. She's very serious. I mean, she's a party girl, but she's very serious and very understated. And Maggie's very serious and understated. So I guess in that sense, like, I felt like they were too alike, and it would have been interesting to me. That I guess that's why I saw her with Chase a little bit, because Chase had so much personality mixed into it, and perhaps it seemed to me that Kate would be the kind of person who would be more into, like, being attracted to somebody through conflict, that she would have that sort of neuroses in her mind, that she'd be drawn to somebody that drives her nuts at the same time. So yeah, I guess that's what it is. and I felt like Maggie and she were just a little too blissful, but with not enough going on. But people can be truly happy that way, just from a story standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, can't it work anyway? You know what I mean? Maybe it's a tempest in a teapot, because it's interesting.
Of course it can, because her main job is being Batwoman. It's not a romance story.
Sure. But it's interesting because JH went out of his way to say, you know what, it's about last minute changes. It's not about
which
the
I can
issue of
totally
marriage.
picture happening.
But yeah, you know, because you've been there, right? But
yeah,
it's interesting because DC, not that they took a huge stand on it, but their point of view actually was like, no, they cared so much about this kind of attitude that marriage is basically boring. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Not that they're against marriage or anything else. It's like, oh, it's like, you know, that they would put their foot down so hard as to, you know, maybe JH is temperamental, maybe a million things went on beyond the scenes that you don't know about.
Yeah.
Final straw, but it's like, yeah, it's almost, you know.
No, I think what happened was, I think like the big wigs, they shoot a lot of things down these days, and I think they weren't notified that this was going to happen by the immediate editor.
Right.
And when they found out, they just said, no, don't do it, and they don't like being argued with. I think that's just as simple as what happened. And
yeah, but
they're just defending it now because they feel like they need to defend themselves. I really don't think it's any deeper than that.
On a book I didn't work on, so I mean, not to give anything away, but Frank Whiteley turned in a cover rough,
mm-hmm.
right? So, like I said, it wasn't our book, so it wasn't All-Star Superman, it wasn't anything else that I worked on
mm-hmm.
with him, but he was telling me the story. He had turned in a cover rough, and they didn't like it, so he gave another one, and then they moved that a little bit, and then he changed it, and they gave another one, and changed it back. He like changed it a million times, and he finally said, you know what, I'm just not going to do covers for this book anymore. And he's not, I mean, he's in high demand, but he's not that much of a prima donna.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we'll just go back to your first cover. You know what I mean? And he was almost more angry that he had to go through all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, maybe people said, hey, let's just like back off. But I guess they don't back off anymore. It's important to kind of, to manage, you know, an entire... I don't think they had it in for anybody, DC, whether it's, you know, but like they have to, it becomes that you have to manage this huge 52 titles and they all tie together.
Yeah.
You're going to come up with rules like, oh, well, we can't be married. Oh, everyone has to be under 25 years old. Oh, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And if you just like, in order to manage all of that,
yeah,
it becomes so centrist, you know, it becomes like a house style. It becomes there's only one thing to do. It becomes Batwoman is treated the same as Batman is the same as Green Lantern. You know what I mean? Because it's like if you try to maintain that much control, everything's going to start looking the same and sounding the same, and you know, maybe no, I don't know.
I agree. I think it's too central. Of course,
but it's not
even in the center. There's like 4 bosses.
But I'm saying it's not even that this one house style is what they think is the best. It's almost by default that if you're going to not micromanage, but like have such, like you can't have as much control over an entire line unless they start imposing broad rules. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's not like, hey, let's just, like for argument's sake, everything's like Batman, so make everything more like Batman. I don't think it's that. I think it's like, well, you know, we have to we have certain principles that we want, but then it becomes too much to handle that everything just kind of gets, there becomes a shorthand for everything, and, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I really think it's just a case-by-case basis, and...
But to me, it's almost, it's I mean, yes, obviously there's always a story, right? And there's always a ton of nuance that gets into it, I think, but to me, it's not case-by-case. It's like everything's getting... You know.
Well, no, I mean that the rules seem to be case by case.
Yeah.
I don't think that if there were standard rules, it'd be really easy to disseminate them. It's just there's 4 bosses and individual editors, you know, have to keep track of things and make sure that they tell the four bosses that, because those guys really are the ones that are making decisions.
Right. But my point is, then for that to work, there has to be a shorthand. You
There
understand?
should. I
No,
agree.
no, I'm not saying there should. I'm saying there has to be, and that shorthand becomes the house style, not a house style that they aim for, but just like, oh, we have to.
It does become, it does become a little more.
A praxis in which everything fits. I
Yeah.
don't know that Marvel is immune to it either. So.
Yeah, who knows? I've never worked for them.
But marriage, no good.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, it could go either way, because her primary thing is being a superhero.
What do you think? And this is totally anecdotal, but fans that you've met who are big Batwoman fans always like to talk about it. Where are they going to fall?
Oh, on this?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't
what does
even
the readership
know.
want?
I don't even know. You know.
Of course you don't know. I just
I think.
But take a stab.
I think a lot of people would have been happy to have seen Maggie. And
that's kind of the
married.
feel that I want. They all want that.
Yeah, I really do think that.
Right. And I think as a publisher,
So you were looking for a specific answer?
Well, no, I thought that's what it would be.
Oh.
But I think there's a danger of that, either as a creator or as a publisher, that you can't necessarily feed. You can't give them what they want because maybe they don't really want it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think people would have been really jazzed and supportive of it.
Yeah, I think it would have been good. I mean,
But numbers were, on that book are kind of, they have been going down disproportionately. I mean, it seems like Batwoman sales have been hurting.
Yeah, they did.
Issue after issue after
and that's
issue
the
after
thing.
issue.
I think
More so than the standard attrition that people talk about.
Yeah, and that might have been part of the reason that they decided that they wanted to change things all of a sudden.
Well,
I don't even know.
if it was selling 250,000 copies, I'm sure
they'd let him do whatever he wanted.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see what happens next. There's a new writer, and I'm kicking myself now.
Mark Andreyko.
Okay, yeah.
So that means Chase will, disappear from the story, and you'll be seeing a lot of Manhunter, which was
really?
a series that Mark Andreyko did.
I thought that. Oh, okay. I thought that they had actually said that he had written some sort of Chase thing.
Oh, did he?
But
Well,
maybe I'm wrong.
wrote the.
I know, but I feel like when I read up on this guy Mark that he had, but
He's openly
maybe I'm
gay, so
wrong.
do you think that's gonna?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good move.
Well, politically or just creatively?
Well, both actually.
I would agree that politically it makes sense, but creatively,
Yeah, I think it's gonna really help creatively. I really, really do. I mean, I think he's gonna have a different look into things than JH would have, for sure. So I'm actually really interested to see what he comes up with. Might even read it.
Now you can start reading it again.
We'll see. But anyway, yeah. Well, fingers crossed for Batwoman.
Best of luck to the. Well, they're not a new couple, so.
Well, hope they stick it out. Nonetheless, maybe they'll marry at a later date.
Yeah, you never know, right?
Yeah, maybe it's just not right now. It's just the same as like Maggie or Kate saying, "Just not right now. Let's hold off the wedding. We need to plan more." And that's all that's really happening, guys. So it's okay.
Would it be granted one's a lesbian and the other one's heterosexual? But is it if Batman and Batwoman got married, incest or
that's
or the right thing?
No, gross. That's just weird and gross. Yeah, no.
I was trying to think of it because Supergirl's a girl and Superman, so it's not quite.
Who do I think would be good with?
Yeah, like they've never done
Batman.
that. Yeah, how come like Spider-Man and Spider-Woman don't go out on a date? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is very incestuous. I think there's a good reason for it.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Like with Superman and Supergirl, literally would be their cousins.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of female versions though of
Hawkeye and Hawkgirl.
Well, yeah, there you go. They're a couple.
Wait. No.
Yeah. No, they are. His name isn't Hawkeye. It happens to be Hawkman. But,
yeah, I was like, because Hawkeye is the one from
Oh, Hawkeye,
Marvel.
they sometimes call Hawk Guy because he's a regular guy.
Oh.
But Hawkman and Hawkwoman, who used to be Hawk
Yeah,
Girl.
they're married, right?
Well, yeah. They have a very bizarre relationship, but yes, they are.
And are Green
an
Arrow
item.
and Canary still married? Black
Yeah, but
Canary?
she's not Green Arrow Lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's a different character.
No, I was just mentioning that because, they're married and they
I'm
do
pretty
all
sure
right
they're not married
anymore.
in the New 52.
Rats.
Yeah. Well, apparently Aquaman is king of Atlantis and Mera is queen of Atlantis.
Oh.
And they were married pre-New 52, and she's still queen and he's still king.
But they're not married
But
now?
now they've never said.
So maybe
they never
there
said
is
they
a
were
standard
married.
rule, and it's been there
Well,
all along.
Well, there you go.
Interesting. Well, who would you marry in the DCU if you got a chance to?
Swamp Thing
With?
with me. Oh.
Yeah. No, not that. Come on. Who would you marry?
I would marry China Mieville and
Swamp Thing?
Gail Simone.
Okay. Well, you're just not going to answer my question. It's fine.
Who would you
I'm
marry?
used to
Obviously,
it.
that's why you're asking the question, because you've...
No, I
you know.
actually don't know, so sorry. I don't know. Wonder Woman and...
Jimmy Olsen and Supergirl.
Yeah. Are they close enough aged?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
All right.
Thumbs up.
Yeah?
Yeah. Who could I can't think of his name now. I keep wanting to call him Jeeves. Alfred.
Alfred?
Who could marry Alfred?
Alfred is married.
Is he?
Yeah. The Batman.
Oh. Well, yeah.
Aren't they?
No.
I think that's in Earth 2 or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is. Gotta read up. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys, and double thanks for Chris Robinson, who's helping us with these podcasts.
Yeah, you got to check out his the short stories he's editing at fanbros.com.
Nice. Check him out. He's at Chris Robinson on Twitter.
Fearless Future.
Yes, Fearless Future. And I'm Amy Reeder at Amy Reeder on Twitter, and Brandon Montclair is Bmontclare. So check us
Follow
out.
us and spread the word. And we're getting close to October 9th, the in-store for Rocket Girl.
Yeah, so make sure that your store has Rocket Girl.
Yeah, the orders are going to be due, retailers can adjust orders up until the 18th or something like that. So tell them, hey, make sure you get a copy of Rocket Girl.
Yeah, definitely.
For me.
Speak up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because there's a lot of new image books coming out in October, especially 4 new #1s, and there's always a lot of stuff. So, you don't want to be caught short. So please let them know that you want it.
Yes. Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.